It's not something that people typically enjoy to talk about. It is the end of life planning and figuring out what happens to your body after you pass on.
But now people are talking about a new option that's catching on across the country, and it sounds a little unusual. News Channel 13's Jerry Gretzinger investigates for us. He's live now here in the studio with a closer look. Jerry?
You know, you're familiar with how some people take things like lawn clippings and coffee grounds and compost them. This new option would essentially let you compost yourself. Wes and Noel Dingman have been married 67 years. He's 89, she's 88. He remembers when they first met before a high school dance.
So I was looking for a partner.
For the dance.
For the dance, and this young lady turned up in town.
After careers in medical research and living and working on a farm, it's no surprise they live a green, eco-friendly life, a pattern they'd like to continue in death.
That would be my ideal thing, let's say that. But of course, once I'm dead, I have no ideals.
The traditional options don't work for them. Cremation is mostly natural.
But it adds about a metric ton of carbon dioxide to the atmosphere.
Burial in the ground or a mausoleum can take up too much space, and after embalming, toxic chemicals can leach into the air and soil.
So that's a real downer in this day and age with our concerns about global warming.
That's why Wes and Noel prefer to be composted.
You end up as about a cubic yard of fertile soil.
If you're like most people, your first reaction is, they want to do what? But it's an idea that's already happening around the country. Ever-expanding cemeteries and global warming, just part of what's given rise to the human composting industry. Formerly called natural organic reduction, companies like Recompose, the first in the nation to offer the end-of-life alternative, have started embracing the human composting moniker.
First I thought it's too gruesome or something, but you know, it's very accurate and people love it.
Katrina Spade is the founder and CEO of Recompose, based in Washington State, the first to legalize human composting in 2019.
But I got kind of fascinated with the system of the funeral industry. How do we care for our bodies after we die? And I knew that I didn't want to be cremated or buried, but that I wanted something natural.
Behind Spade in the honeycomb-like structure is where it all happens. The body, not embalmed, is rested on a cradle and covered with plant material, wood chips, alfalfa, straw, and is placed inside one of these vessels where nature is allowed to run its course.
And so what that's doing is creating the perfect environment for microbial activity to occur.
Translation: natural decomposition of the body in about 30 days.
When we open up the vessel, we have what looks like a topsoil or compost that you would buy at the nursery. And our team then screens for non-organic materials like titanium hip or some sort of plastic shoulder you might have going on.
There can still be a sort of wake before the body goes into the vessel, and when the soil comes out, the family decides how it is returned to the earth. For Wes and Noel, they like the idea that their soil can give way to new life.
You put it out there and plant a tree in it.
Human composting is legal in 3 states, Colorado, Oregon, Washington, and is currently being considered in New York. Coming up at 6, we're going to hear from those supporting its legalization, find out where religious leaders stand, and what it costs to compost the dearly departed.
Human composting may sound strange, but the earth-friendly end-of-life alternative is becoming more accepted across the country.
It's a talker for sure. It essentially turns a body into soil. Jerry Gretzinger has been looking into this, the road to legalization in New York, and what it costs to compost the dearly departed.
Change is hard, especially when it has to do with something sensitive and personal like death. There's the tradition of burial, the alternative of cremation. Tell people there's a new idea like composting, and for many, you've blown their comfort zone.
Well, when I first heard about the topic, I thought it was a little wacky.
Assemblywoman Amy Paulin represents the 88th District and chairs the Corporations Committee, which oversees cemeteries. After her initial hesitation, she learned more and is now sponsoring a bill to legalize human composting or natural organic reduction in New York State.
There's more people on this earth, and we're running out of room to bury them, and cremation isn't an option for everyone, and this seemed like such a good choice for people.
The first state to legalize it was Washington. That's where Recompose became the first company to offer the end-of-life alternative.
Recompose is sort of a one-stop shop. You call us when someone dies, we pick up the body and work with a family to have a service, and then of course transform that body into soil.
Founder and CEO Katrina Spade says it all costs $5,500. Similar cremation services can run slightly higher, and burial services easily top $7,000. But the traditional options are not devoid of harmful environmental impacts. Pollution from cremation and toxic chemicals leaching into the soil when embalmed bodies break down.
And I've come to realize the climate crisis is so huge, and we need as many people getting on this as possible.
New York is among several states now considering human composting, but it is not without its detractors. Dennis Paust of the New York State Catholic Conference declined an interview, but said in a statement, "We do not believe that the composting of human bodies for use as fertilizer sufficiently respects the dignity of the human body. The Catholic Church teaching on disposition of human remains accepts both burial and cremation. Even in the case of cremation, however, the remains are to be put in a worthy container and buried." He says the church is actively lobbying against Assemblywoman Paulin's bill.
So we're hoping to kind of fight that a little bit and educate the church.
Paulin says in states where bills have passed, the church has backed off. Support in New York is growing.
Simply a third option in a framework right now that we only have two options.
Jack Core is 27 from Brooklyn. Likely a long way off from needing an end-of-life plan, he has grown passionate about green alternatives and manages City Grove, a nonprofit advocating for natural organic reduction.
You are just organic material at the end of the day, and the end product is your body is very gently transformed into soil, just a transfer of organic material.
Wes and Noel Dingman, 89 and 88, also support the composting bill.
It's scary to think of dying, but the fact is, of course, it is what happens to all life over time.
The Queensbury couple wants to make human composting their end-of-life plan. They're just hopeful they won't have to wait too long for New York State to let them. Jerry Gretzinger, News Channel 13.